Well, I'd say the election is over, but the truth is in California, we're still counting ballots. It's basically over. And how's that going to change? There's a lot of articles about how it changes overall, but how's it going to change real estate in California, Los Angeles? I'm Bill Gross. This is my weekly real estate update. And we're going to talk about changes and how they're going to affect us, I think, going forward. Before I get into that, though, we should always look at the stats to know where the market is to make sure we understand any place it could possibly go. And as we evaluate the real estate market, there's always two sides to an economy. There's the demand and supply. Demand in real estate would be affected most notably by interest rates and supply by inventories. Let's take a look at interest rates. They stayed pretty solid. They had been rising dramatically ever since September, which is surprising. Before the election, the federal government had done its best to kind of keep a clamp on overall market interest rates, but the mortgage rates jumped up and got to about 7% and have tapered off here the last couple of weeks, staying in the same spot, below 7 for retail mortgages. So these are still rates that are, if you look over the last year, they're kind of about the midpoint of where they've been. They are below where they've been for over half the year, maybe above where they've been for part of it. So still at a rate that buyers should find good enough rates to qualify to buy houses as long as they have the income, the credit, and such to buy the property. So I think that's the good news, is that rates as a result of the election didn't go up dramatically, they didn't go down dramatically. I think that really the lack of drama is the main story. Now on the inventory side, continuing, inventory is dropping. Now that's typical. If you look at since 2012, almost every year, inventory peaks in the summertime and then drops in the wintertime, goes back up in the summertime and starts dropping into the wintertime. So this is a common seasonal fluctuation. But if you look at 2019, when the pandemic hit, it really disrupted the market for this past 5 years. While there is some seasonality, it still is obviously disrupted, but you can see that this year is kind of starting to repeat that pattern. But look how much lower inventory is than any other year pre-pandemic. So what's important to notice is both that maybe the normal seasonal direction is back, but how low inventory is. And so even if rates do go up a bit, or the economy slows a bit, prices cannot drop as long as there is not excess inventory to have extra sellers who want to sell properties in order for prices to drop down. So inventory still is manageable level. If you look at the Los Angeles market specifically, I love Altos Research. They do a good job on kind of summarizing all the data points. And they tell us that we're still in a slight seller's market. We've been as high as a 42, 41 last year, now down to a 36, which is slightly down from 37, 38 a few months ago, but still a seller's market. And that's my feeling as a listing agent, that we still remain in that spot. So overall, the market's pretty solid. Okay, so let's talk about the election. It's over. What's it mean to me and you? And more importantly, specifically in my world, I'm not a political analyst, but I am a real estate investor, real estate broker, real estate expert, and podcaster. What does the election change on us? So, look, I don't want to get into the politics of it. If you vote for Kamala Harris, no doubt you're disappointed. And we've seen all kinds of videos about people upset and pointing blame as to why and what happened. And if you voted for Donald Trump, you're happy with the outcome. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people who have a lot of reasons. I don't think real estate played a main part in it, but I do believe it's going to have a big effect on real estate. Now, it won't have as big effect as I think the news attempted to make it. We all saw stories about celebrities promising to move out of the country if Donald Trump won, right? Famously Robert De Niro and many others. Here's an interesting, I just think these articles are hysterical. This is from AOL. More than half of Harris voters want to relocate. Now, again, I'm not laughing at the Harris voters. I'm laughing at that the news would run this nonsense, because there's no way half of America, I think 36 million plus voted for her. There's no way 18 million people are going to move because of the election. In fact, most of the Harris voters live in states that are already have her types of policies, meaning she carried California, she carried New York. Well, you're not going to move from New York or California because she lost the vote, because you're already in those states. So the whole premise of this, I just think that I want to show this article to show you, the news just wants you upset. Boy, if you look on the right there, you'll notice I was shopping for some new sunglasses. But the news just wants you upset, it wants you mad, it wants you emotional. It does not give you any good data or good information. It really is just, I think, playing with you. And this is a perfect example of it. The idea that half of the Harris voters want to move. it's just really stupid. Now, in California, though, what's going to happen? Because we're going to be different than most states, and one of the differences is California will be the center of the resistance. We have a governor who has claimed to be the head of resistance. We have a U.S. senator who won election, Adam Schiff, who's talking about leading a shadow government. Here is our Attorney General, Rob Bonta. Now, if you want to know how bad government officials are, how they're focused on themselves and not the problem, you'll notice his email. We all get lots of emails. This is the only email I've ever got where both the header has the picture of the person and the top of the email itself does, meaning this guy has not one, but two pictures of himself on the top of the email. Now, this is an email series that I've been getting this every month or so from him because the Attorney General oversees real estate law, and that's something I pay attention to. So I do want to read it. But you can see this is really just a campaign piece for Rob Bonta. He's using his position. And just as if that's not enough, you scroll down, there's another picture of Rob talking about protecting California's values. There's another picture of Rob holding Norwalk accountable. Now, if I was going to do an article about holding Norwalk accountable, I'd show somebody in Norwalk or what the problem was in Norwalk I'm holding accountable. But here, this guy, this government official, this employee of us taxpayers, he's our employee, he has it backwards, has 4 pictures in the top half of an email he has. I think that just shows you where our government is. If you read the details, though, he says no matter who holds the White House or controls Congress, we're moving forward with a progressive agenda, which is interesting to say because, like it or not, the progressive agenda was turned back in California. Now, it's true, we elected a very progressive senator in Adam Schiff, but the rent control extensions, Prop 33 went down in flames, and the decriminalization was overturned, Proposition 36. So if anything, Californians for the first time in a while voted for moderation or maybe a turnaround of progressive trends. But here's Rob Bonta saying, no, we're going to continue as if the train's going to continue the tracks or run off the end of the road no matter what anybody says. More troubling, I think, is this article we talks about Norwalk. Because what happened is the state government officials like Rob Bonta and Governor Newsom want to force cities like Norwalk to build more low-income housing in their cities. And so they passed a law saying you all have to have more low-income housing in your cities. Well, people don't want it for a lot of reasons. One, nobody wants to live next to the low-income housing. Number two, low-income housing has to be paid for with subsidies, whereas normal housing brings revenue into a city. So by definition, building low-income housing is costing you tax dollars. And the kind of customers that move into low-income housing spend less on local businesses, oftentimes bring crime with them. But even setting that aside, obviously lower-income people have less money to spend at restaurants and stores and things. So no city wants to build low-income housing. It's only the state that wants to force these. And so here you have a picture of Rob Bonta holding Norwalk accountable. Basically, he's saying that he's holding the good people of Norwalk who don't want to build this housing. He's going to continue to put the clamp on them as far as using legal sanctions and such. And what does this lead to? Well, here's an example of these policies in the city of Irvine, one of my favorite cities to live in. And people who, if there's one city that people love living in, it's Irvine, if you know people from Irvine. And here you have the Irvine City Council. They actually ended up voting against buying properties to comply with the state laws, 3-2. What happened was, if you read the article, and it's interesting that all the news now seems to come from transcriptions of TV news. We don't get news anymore, really, from news sources. Irvine had, the city council was so anxious to comply with the law, and I think in their minds thinking they had to, that they circumvented the normal process to expedite spending $20 million on low-income housing. And citizens groups found out about it and protested and got 3 of the council members to vote it down. And so this is a case where the city has turned down now this program to buy housing. So in addition to Norwalk, and recently we heard stories about Huntington Beach, you know how the city of Irvine, and Beverly Hills, where they can't get any permits now because the state is forcing cities to build housing that the cities don't want. So these are the policies that are now, I think, being battled on a federal level. And in California, we're going to be the center of that resistance, and that's going to play out. And whether you think that's good or bad, you're going to have a chance to, I think, watch that in real time. If you want to see what the government does and how incompetent they are in their goal, the continuing story of UCLA's disgraceful use of land that was dedicated for homeless veterans. The LAist is a great online website. Can't recommend them enough. They've been all over this story. And I was floored when I read the latest issue. This is land that was donated in 1890 for veterans. Before World War I, this family who had this large ranch donated land. And that's where the VA Center is in Westwood. There's a hospital, there was housing that became so dilapidated. It was built in the 50s and housed up to 5,000 vets on site. Became so dilapidated that now nobody lives there full time. They have some temporary hospital beds, but it went from 5,000 to 0. In 2015, the VA administration estimated there were 4,000 homeless vets across the country, meaning that this one unit in the Veterans Park could house theoretically all the anticipated vets as of 2015. Now, the story behind this is that the other part of the facility has been leased to a business, an oil services business, to the Brentwood School District and to UCLA, where UCLA built their baseball stadium. They named it the Jackie Robinson Stadium after great athlete and social justice story, Jackie Robinson. But that field is on land that was designed for homeless vets. And so when a group representing vets sued UCLA, they fought it. And this litigation has gone on for 8 years. And UCLA lost, and they appealed, and they lost, and they appealed, and they lost, and they appealed. And recently the judge said, hey, you can appeal, but in the meantime, can you at least put temporary housing on the parking lot? Not even the baseball stadium. Can you at least on the parking lot find in your heart to house homeless veterans? And that had to be negotiated. That had to be fought with UCLA. That's how disgraceful UCLA is. That's how disgraceful this whole story is, that we actually have enough government resources to solve the problem. All of the problems going on right now are because of the inefficiency of government and government officials like Rob Bonta, who are so focused on running for election for their next job, they never solve the problems like homelessness in our cities. So again, LES, great job on that story. Now, another story, if you follow me regularly, I talk about what I call the evil monopolistic companies, in particular Zillow, which is the most highly valued real estate company in America. I think about $7 billion. Somehow they're worth $7 billion, but pay zero federal taxes. I think zero federal state tax as well, but zero federal taxes on their financials. How can that be? Well, that's the power of venture capital. They take money and they buy companies and they, on paper, lose money. They spend more time not paying taxes than they do helping people buy houses. But what Zillow does, if you know, their goal has been to disrupt the real estate industry, which means to put out of business tax-paying real estate agents like myself. Good luck, you haven't done it to me yet. But now, if you read their, I'm sorry, before I even go to that, just to show you how off track they're not helping people buy houses. Now Zillow's 2025 home trends, they talk about the things that people want to buy in houses today are whole home batteries, solar panels, electric vehicle charges, home libraries, drought-resistant turf yards, and spa-inspired wet rooms. So does that sound to you like basic housing? Does that sound to you like Zillow's gone bougie? Well, they have, because I think as the housing market, as distorted by our federal government, now only the wealthy can buy houses increasingly. Zillow's turning bougie to go to their market. And also, Zillow's not really a focus on the consumer. They're focused on government officials using their monopolistic powers, and they're focused on raising money from Wall Street. So they want to appeal to Wall Street executives who think they're cool and hip, not actually help people buy houses. So towards that now, Zillow, not satisfied with disrupting the real estate industry, now they're also pairing with their premier agents their growing mortgage business. So they're using their monopolistic power on online services to now get customers more pushed towards them in mortgage. Now, I haven't seen anywhere where Zillow has claimed to give better service as far as mortgages to customers, or lower prices. What I have seen is Zillow pairing with their partners, which is another way of saying using their monopolistic power to force consumers or limit consumer choices or unfairly push consumers. You know, when I worked in real estate offices, we, number one, had to disclose when we had a relationship with a lender. Well, Zillow doesn't have to because they're not technically doing the real estate. But more than that, we also had to, just because of market pressures, give other lenders access to agents in our office, whereas Zillow is now giving incentives to their Premier Agent program to send them the mortgages. So again, what could be wrong with a monopoly like Zillow using their monopolistic power in mortgages? So increasingly, they're pushing in that way. And then not to be content with that, Zillow is going to pair up with another, what I would call monopolistic vampire, Compass. Compass is a real estate company, not yet a monopoly, but aspiring monopoly, venture funded, worth billions of dollars, haven't paid a penny in federal taxes yet. And so Zillow is aspiring to become the replacement for the multiple listing service, right? They want to be the person that everybody turns to say, well, what houses are available for sale or not? Now, today they have a stranglehold in that business today. Virtually every consumer crosses through Zillow at some point. So you would say already they're monopolists, but their goal is to put out of business their competitors. That's what monopolies do. So one way Zillow is to replace the MLS. The MLS, we call the MLS, is really a cooperation amongst about 548 independent MLS services, multiple listing services across the country. And in some cases, they don't cooperate. Certain MLSs do not share data with others, famously mountain and resort areas, for whatever reason. It's a competitive business. They cooperate when it helps both of them, and they don't when they don't. But here's Zillow saying, well, we want to just replace them. How could that be wrong? And then you have Compass, who they're creating their own off-market strategy. So the lawsuit was, it's unfair to consumers to make sellers put properties on the market if you belong to the MLS. And of course, that helped sellers because the more people saw their houses, the better. Compass is trying to use their monopolistic power to be the premier off-market listing, and they're here advocating for Zillow to be the national on-market listing. So all we would have then would be two companies. There'd be Zillow and Compass, neither of them paying any federal taxes, and each of them putting out of business 1 million realtors and 540 MLS services across the country, not to mention lenders. What could go wrong with that? You know, if you think back in time, I don't know about you, but I used to go to local bookstores. There are none in LA that I'm aware of. We have one, Borders. I think we just opened another one in Santa Monica locally, but we don't have bookstores. Amazon destroyed them and all the retailers they destroyed. And their advantage was they didn't pay taxes. They didn't pay sales taxes originally. And Zillow and Compass are using their powers to destroy competitors. It's not enough that either one of them could do a better job in their own field, but here you have a case where they're really doing their best, I think, to destroy the competition. So how do you feel about that? We have more government control. We don't have the government protecting us from monopolies, whether it be Google, Facebook, or Zillow, or in this case, Compass, attempting to monopolize off-market listings. So they also be doing their job, and yet this battle in the election has been for more government control or not. What do you think? Put your comments in the chat box down below, like or dislike this. Love to have you subscribe. I'm at Bill Gross Probate and social media. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.